My name is Anthony Neshwat. I'm an active firefighter creating this video to educate city council members in my jurisdiction about fire prevention. To start, I'm going to talk about education. Education serves as a foundational element in fire prevention, fostering awareness and understanding among individuals and communities regarding fire risks and safety measures. Through educational initiatives, individuals are equipped with knowledge necessary to recognize potential hazards, implement preventative strategies, and respond effectively in the event of a fire. Programs target various demographics, including children, adults, professionals, and emphasize the importance of fire safety practices such as proper use of fire extinguishers, the significance of smoke alarms, and the development of evacuation plans. Educational campaigns often utilize diverse methods, including workshops, seminars, and interactive simulations to engage participants to be active. The effectiveness of these programs is proved by statistical reductions in fire-related incidents in communities that prioritize fire safety education. Education not only empowers individuals, but also cultivates a culture of safety that permeates throughout society. Next, we'll talk about enforcement. Enforcement encompasses the regulatory frameworks and policies that govern fire and safety standards and practices. This aspect of fire prevention is critical as it ensures compliance with established codes and regulations. Designed to minimize fire hazards, fire codes, which are often developed and designed to minimize fire developed and enforced by local authorities, stipulate requirements for building materials, fire exits, alarm systems, and other safety measures. The enforcement of these codes is typically carried out through inspections and penalties from non-compliance and the issuance of permits. Enforcement mechanisms play a pivotal role in holding individuals and organizations accountable for maintaining a fire safety standard. Next would be engineering. Engineering in the context of fire prevention refers to the design and implementation of systems and technologies that mitigate fire risks and enhance safety. This includes the development of fire-resistant materials, advanced alarm systems, and suppression technologies such as sprinklers and fire extinguishers. Engineers play a crucial role in creating environments that are inherently safer, employing principles of fire science and safety engineering to design buildings and infrastructures that minimize the likelihood of fire outbreaks. The integration of engineering solutions into urban planning and building design is essential for effective fire prevention. So how is code enforced? Fire code regulations are legal standards used to protect people and property from potential fires. Inspections can enforce codes and are typically done by fire marshals or fire inspectors. Commercial and industrial buildings are required to have inspections more frequently than residential buildings. If a building or property fails to meet fire prevention standards, that person or party may be subject to fines or penalties. So how can local jurisdiction apply codes to new or existing occupancies? Local jurisdiction can apply fire codes to new or existing occupancies through permit requirements, code updates, inspections, and enforcements. Local jurisdiction requires that fire prevention codes, such as National Fire Protection Association or the NFPA, or international fire codes for new construction to be followed. These new buildings must comply with fire safety features such as fire exits, sprinkler systems, alarms, emergency lighting, and fire separations. Not only do new occupancies need to adhere to these safety features, but existing occupancies do as well. Routine inspections by local fire departments or fire marshals ensure that they have proper maintenance and fire protection systems. Adequate exit routes, lighting and signs, and fire resistive materials are maintained, or when existing buildings change its use into a warehouse. Local jurisdictions may require that buildings be up to date with code standards. Older buildings, however, may be grandfathered in and do not have to fully comply with current fire codes unless upgrades or restoration is done. Okay. Next, we'll talk about how to identify local organizations that determine fire resistance of building materials. In the United States, some prominent organizations that determine fire resistance of building materials include Underwriter Laborers. They test and evaluate building materials for fire resistance. The National Fire Protection Association develops codes and standards for fire safety, including the fire resistance of materials. They work to educate the public and professionals about fire safety and standards. Another organization is the International Code Council, or the ICC. The ICC develops building codes for fire safety standards. Lastly, the Fire Protection Research Foundation conducts fire safety research and studies of fire science and resistance of materials. So we would how to identify the types of tests used to determine fire ratings of certain buildings. In the city of Racine, Wisconsin, some standards for fire safety tests would be ASTM E119, standard test methods for fire tests of building construction and materials. This test assesses the fire resistance of building structures like walls, floors, and roofs by exposing them to fire-controlled environments. Another one would be ASTM E84. This test measures the flame spread and smoke development of walls and ceiling materials. This test is pretty cool because they place materials in a horizontal tunnel and expose it to the flame, and when the flame and smoke density are recorded. E814, standard test methods for fire tests through penetration. Fire stops evaluates the fire resistance of a fire stop system used to seal openings around doorways and windows and fire resistance related assemblies. This is done by exposing penetration fire stop systems to certain fire conditions, and this determines the ability to prevent the passage of fire and smoke. So next we would describe how fire tests and fire ratings apply to inspection code and enforcement. In the city of Racine, the Wisconsin State Building Code 361366 is enforced by the Department of Safety and Professional Services. It incorporates national standards like ASTM and NFPA for fire safety. These codes require building materials and assemblies to meet specific fire-resistant ratings, and the performance of those materials must be verified through tests like the ASTM E119 or E84. During the design and approval phase of construction, local building departments like the Racine Building Department will verify that construction plans comply with state and local building codes, including fire-resistant requirements. This involves ensuring that materials specified in the plans have been tested and approved for their fire-resistant ratings. Lastly, we're going to identify characteristics of unsafe structures in my area as they relate to code requirements in building construction types, and what poses the greatest hazards. So back in the day, Racine was a flourishing city and a leader in manufacturing of agricultural machinery. Unfortunately, many of these old warehouses are now abandoned and may be considered unsafe structures. These abandoned warehouses most likely have outdated or inadequate fire protection, such as sprinklers, alarms, and fire-related barriers. SPS 361, Wisconsin's Commercial Building Codes, requires automatic sprinklers for certain occupancies, including warehouses. However, old and abandoned warehouses may have decommissioned or never installed these systems. There are probably blocked or inadequate exits, outdated electrical wiring, hazardous materials, etc. Many characteristics of these buildings do not meet code requirements, and these buildings are easily susceptible to fires. I believe that in the city of Racine, we should require old abandoned buildings to keep up to date on the fire prevention standards. And you can link that to whoever occupied the building previously. So with all that being said, I hope that my message is clear to the city council that fire prevention is important and is needed for the future safety of our city. Thank you.